morning, Stonehill. How we doing? Nice. You guys are getting better at that. I like it. I don't have to keep asking for it. It's like, yeah, the energy is there. Well, welcome. If you're new with us, we're glad you're here hanging out. We have been in a series called Head, Heart, Habits over the last few weeks, and this is the 5th week of the series, and it's been great. We've been kind of studying through what we call the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus, he stood and he kind of gave out the basics, kind of laid the law down that, hey, if you want to follow me, if you want to be a disciple, here are some things that you need to know, and he kind of sets the bar for everybody. And it's a little bit what we're doing through the next few weeks, and it'll be 9 weeks total that we're talking about all this. But today is a great subject. Today is where Jesus, he sits and he talks about, hey, you guys you're seeing a lot of oaths, you're doing a lot of vows, a lot of swearing, and not cussing swearing, but swearing, you know what I'm saying, I'm swearing, right? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I couldn't help, but when I was preparing for this message, all I had was that song. Do you guys remember that song? The I Swear, that one? You guys remember that song?
I swear by the moon and the stars in the sky.
I don't need you to sing it.
I'll be there.
No, seriously, you don't need to sing it. That's cool.
And I swear like the shadow that's by your side. Come on now.
Come on, sing it with us.
I'll be there. Come on. For better or worse, till death do us part. I'll love you with every beat of my heart. I swear. Yeah.
That was good. I was like,
now the country version. Country version.
No, we don't need to do the country. No, that's cool. That's cool.
By the moon.
No, it's just thank you. Wow. That was totally impromptu. We didn't. That was weird, dude. All right. That's awkward. No, legitimately, I had that song stuck in my head the whole time I was preparing for this message, because it's a little bit of what we do. This whole idea of swearing. I was hanging out July 4th. How many of us had a good July 4th? Was it fun? Good. July 4th was a lot of fun for us too. This is our first time in Idaho and hanging out on July 4th, and so we decided to hang out in our subdivision in Tuscany because we heard that there's a parade that happens with the kids, and we're like, that'd be a lot of fun for them. And so we decorated the bikes and the plasma cars and all that stuff, and we met them over by the Forensi pool, and we started walking in the parade. And at the parade were a few other Stonehillers, which was awesome, and also Leif and Erica. Leif is the one that did the Summer Essentials up here. He's our student ministries director. And they're hanging out. They had their kids there, and so our house is five doors down from the Forensi pool, and their kids, once the parade started, were going and going, and by the time they got to our house, they were done, which is like literally 2.5 minutes into the parade, like done. And so I look at Leif and I go, hey, do you want to store the plasma cars in our garage? And Erica's sitting there too, and they're kind of like, no, we don't. I don't know if we really need to. And I'm like, no, go ahead, And so I start opening the garage to let them store, and Erica goes, no, don't worry about it. We're used to Idaho now. I'm like, what does that mean? She goes, well, we've never had anyone steal our stuff, so we've kind of just trusted people that they're not going to do it. And I go, I can't do that yet. I can't do that yet. All right, and those of you that grew up maybe California, California, you don't leave anything out, all right? Because if you leave something out, it's going to get taken for sure. And I'm like, you can't leave your plasma cars out. Just put them in my garage. And no, it's okay, it's fine. And I'm thinking, how do you do that? How can you trust people like that? Because I'm going to be honest with you, and I think a lot of us have the same issue too. I have some trust issues, all right? Trust issues. I really do. And I'd have you stand up and raise your hand with me if you have trust issues too, but I won't do that, all right? But we have trust issues, and that's a little bit of what I think Jesus is going to talk about today, because in the context of life, in the context of relationships, trust is generally the first casualty in that relationship. Trust is the first thing to die. It's the first thing to go in relationships because, there's a lot of reasons because of that. I think truth or lack of truth is the culprit. That's one of them for sure. And then history is like the court reporter. History is kind of what's going, hey, you probably shouldn't trust that. I mean, we've all heard it before, stereotypes and things like that, right? You don't trust a car dealer, all right? If you're a car dealer in this room, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Not of course you're the anomaly, all right? That's cool. You don't trust a mechanic, same thing, right? You don't trust your Taco Bell order. You always look in the bag for your Taco Bell order, but if you're in and out, what do? You're good to go. They got it right. They did. They got it right, for sure. But history, right? Because history is what kind of keeps that thing going on. And if you see, again, in history that I don't know if I could trust this. Trust is the first casualty in relationships. I saw this great quote. It says this, that trust is like blood pressure. It's silent, vital to good health, and if abused, it can be what? It can be deadly. Absolutely deadly. I think it is that so many people, and if we're honest with ourselves, we've been guilty of this too, we abuse trust. We absolutely abuse trust. I was thinking through the first time I bought my home in San Diego. It was amazing when Danae and I sat down to sign the papers for all of the loans. First off, we had to do like background checks. We had to do financial background checks. We had to give them 3 months of financial history to prove that we're good. We had the credit scores. We had everything like that just to get to the place of being able to sign that stack of papers where you sign and sign and sign. And I asked why. I was sitting across from her. I go, why do we have to sign so many papers? And she says, because people have found all the loopholes to get out of their mortgage. And so that's why you have to sign everything. Every little detail, every little loophole, every little thing is covered in this thing. So that way, you have to do what it says you have to do. Because the reality is, as a humanity, we kind of try to get away with a lot of stuff, don't we? We try to get away with a lot of things. We don't really stick to what we're actually going to do. And so today, I want to ask this question. How do you and I build trust in our relationships? How do we build trust in our relationships? And the section of scripture we're going to be in today is not really a section of scripture that talks about how to build trust necessarily, but certainly is applied, and when we apply it, will build trust. And so you can turn with me to Matthew chapter 5. We're going to be in verses 33 through 36. And again, I told you we're on the Sermon on the Mount, and this is still the first part of it, and Jesus is kind of powering through all these truths that he's going through. And this is the fourth antithesis. In other words, this is the fourth time he said, you've heard it said, but I tell you instead, in other words. And so he's saying what we're doing is we're moving from the head to the heart. We're moving from all the things you know to all the things you really should be. It's a big deal here. It's something that Jesus always tries to do, connecting the head to the heart. And so look at verse 33. It says again, you have heard that it was said to people long ago, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it's his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it's the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. Just don't even do it. Don't swear. Don't make oaths. Don't do all these things. And there's lots of reasons that we do this. There's lots of reasons that humanity feels the need to swear oaths, the need to make promises, the need to say, hey, I will do this for sure, guaranteed, cross my heart, hope to die, all these things. There's a reason, because I think that we fall short often. We don't really believe that the other person's going to come through. And so because of that, we need them to say, I promise, I swear. And they need to hear us say, I promise, I swear. But if we're going to build trust, if we're really going to build trust in our relationships, I think we need to stop complicating things. How many of us know that we can be pretty complicated? We need to stop complicating things so much. I think in humanity, in this culture that we live in today, we make things so complicated, and sometimes we just need to go, you know what? Let's stop complicating things. And in the Old Testament, which Jesus, again, that's why he's saying, you've heard it said. What they've heard said was in the Old Testament. That was the Old Testament law. But now he's creating kind of this new law. And he's saying, but now I tell you, now I say, don't even do it at all. Because there's this hierarchy of swearing back then. Again, I'm not talking about cussing. I'm talking about vows. There's a hierarchy of saying, you know, I promise, I swear, I will. And so I kind of put it this way. For less serious issues, they would swear by heaven or earth or something of less sacred meaning. And they would do this. It was just a part of their culture back then. They would just swear. So an example, today's day and age. My daughter, Brooklyn, she asked, hey, Papa, are you going to go to my track meet it was last Thursday? And I said, baby, I promise you, I swear that I will be there. And that came out of my mouth, and I was preparing for this message. Because there's this thing that we feel like, again, we need to do it. And back then it would have been like me saying, baby, I swear by heaven, I swear by earth, I swear by my head that I will be there. For less sacred meanings, that's what they would do back then. But for more serious issues, the most serious issues, they would swear by God. And only swearing by God did it make that binding. And so that was the only time. So for very, very serious issues, they would say, I swear to God. Which some of you are like, I don't like that. Please don't do that. It hurts my heart. Don't do that. Don't swear to God. But that's what the part of Old Testament culture would do. They would swear to God. Why? Because swearing to God would make it binding. It would make it legally binding. It would say, hey, this is the highest oath. This is the biggest thing, the best thing, this is the craziest thing I can say to make sure that you believe that what I'm saying is going to happen. It's going to happen. I swear to God that it will happen. But Jesus is saying again, you don't need to swear an oath. You don't need to try to build up your character. He's saying instead, don't do that. Instead, allow your character to speak for itself. That's what Jesus is really saying. Just let your character, let who you are be who you are. Don't try to puff yourself up with pride. Don't try to make it more than you are. Just be who you are. And that's why he says, don't make an oath at all. Instead, all you need to say is simply, what? Yes or no? Just say yes or just say no, but don't do all this fluff. Don't do all the swear. Don't do all the oath, all the promising, all the I will be there, all the things that we do. Just let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. And then that second part of this. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. That anything beyond this is of Satan. You're like, well, DJ, don't like hyper-spiritualize this. I'm not hyper-spiritualizing. I'm just saying what's out there. That anything beyond this is, well, we talked about this a lot. And if you're new with us, one of our greatest struggles is this need to prove ourselves. It's the original sin. It's when the snake said to Eve, did God really say that? Did he really do that? Are you really like God? It's this need to try to puff ourselves up, to prove our worth, to make it so that I'm needed. And it's the same issue that's here. That anything beyond yes, anything beyond no is actually evil. It's actually evil. See, character is a big deal. A huge deal. If you're a manager or if you own a business or you hire people, there's something I learned a while ago, probably about 5 years ago, that's really helped me when it comes to searching for new employees. It's come for, helping people develop in their leadership. I like to call it the 3 C's. The 3 C's of personal qualities. And this has helped me a ton. And if you're taking notes, I think this will help you too. Again, specifically if you're in the business field or even raising your kids. This is something that we need to be teaching them. But the 3 C's are this: character, competency, and chemistry. Character, the who I am, that's like my moral and ethical self. And then there's the competency, that's what I know, that's my skills, my abilities, my talents, my gifts. And then there's chemistry, that's the how I fit in, my adaptability, the way that I include or don't include the people around me, the way that I work or don't have teamwork or do have teamwork. That's all a part of it. And absolutely, every single one of these C's is needed when it comes to our personal quality. Because you can have character and competency, but if you don't have chemistry, we've all worked with somebody that we're not really, getting along with, right? Raise your hand if you've worked with somebody you really didn't get along with. We've all worked with that. Do you remember how frustrating it was? Maybe you're in it right now and you're like, I do know exactly how frustrating that is. Because there's no chemistry. Chemistry is a big deal. You have to have chemistry when you work with people around you. Or you could have character and chemistry but not competency, and I think we've all probably worked with those people too, right? The ones where you're like, you've been working here for 5 years. How do you not know how to do this yet? Where's your TPS report? All right? Some of you know what that meant. Some of you didn't. And so that competency piece, you got to have competency too. You got to have chemistry. But if you have competency and chemistry, but you don't have character, it's wiped out. It's wiped out. Character trumps everything. And maybe you have worked with somebody that had chemistry, that had competency, but their character was questionable. I remember I worked with somebody, I was actually at a church, and this guy, his competency level was up there. I mean, he was one of the most competent creative, amazing, in his workplace, brilliant, absolutely, like, breathtakingly brilliant, talented guy. And chemistry, he was fun to hang out with. When we did hang out, we got along, and it was awesome, but his character was off. That when we weren't hanging out, I felt like sometimes maybe he was talking behind my back or not saying things. I knew that for him and his character, his moral and ethical self wasn't really where it should be, specifically at working for a church, but it was beyond that even, really, you're not even striving after Jesus at this point, and you're working at a church, and so his character had issues, and ultimately we had to let go of that guy because it didn't matter how good he was at his job, and it didn't matter how good he got along with the people around him. Ultimately, his moral, his ethical self was off. Character trumps everything, and if we're going to build trust with the people around us, if we're going to really grow in that area, character is everything. And so maybe you're sitting here, you're thinking, yeah, I understand that. I want to build my character, but I'll be honest with you, I don't even really know how to build my character. Well, character's developed just one step at a time. It's one choice at a time, one scenario at a time. It's one thing at a time, just taking it and saying yes, saying no, not trying to puff up your pride, not trying to do more than you really need to do. Just show up. Warren Buffett has this great quote. He says this, that it takes years to build a reputation and minutes to ruin it. It takes years to build a reputation and minutes to ruin it. That it takes choice after choice, decision after decision, scenario after scenario to build up that character. And character has everything to do with having a good reputation. I'm talking about a good reputation, not a bad reputation. But if we're going to build up our character, if we're going to understand that what God has for us is, hey, don't say, oh, so you don't need to do that. Instead, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. We got to take it one step at a time. Because here's the reality. There's a lot of us that have broken trust in this room. There's a lot of us that have done things either in our relationships with the people that are really close to us or coworkers or siblings or parents or neighbors, and we're thinking that trust is long gone. I don't even know how to restore that trust. I don't even know what to do to get to that place of being able to get them to trust me again. And I just want to encourage you in something. Just one step at a time. One choice at a time. When you say yes, be there when you say yes. One at a time. If you say that you're going to be there for death do us part, when you get in a fight, don't say then, well, I guess it's time to get a divorce. You can't say those words. You can't do those things. It's showing up. If you say you're going to be there, then we are going to be there. And specifically as Christ followers, this is something that we have to do. And specifically for the people that are around us, even more than just the family, that as a Christ follower, I represent Christ. As a Christ follower, this is who I am. And it's beyond just me. It's beyond just who I am. Now I represent God. And so when people find out that I am a Christ follower, and I'm not really living like Christ, that's when they go, well, they're just that hypocritical Christian. I mean, I've heard that so many times. Probably the number one excuse for why people don't have a relationship with Jesus is because they don't want to be like those hypocrites. They don't want to be like those kind of people that say they have a relationship with God, but honestly, their lives aren't reflecting it at all. Not at all. I don't want to be like that. See, in 2 Peter it says, but you are a chosen people. That if you and I if we call ourselves Christ followers, that we are a royal priesthood, a holy nation, that we are God's special possession, that you may declare the praise of him who called you out of darkness and into his wonderful light, that we represent God. Danae and I are getting our house painted, and it was part of when we bought the house. It was part of the deal that they would give us money so we could paint it. And so early on, I asked one of my friends that lived here, I said, hey, who's a great painter? And so we got this company, and they came out, and they gave us a quote in February, like I looked again, it was February 12th is when we did it. And I said, great, we went through all these things and all that, and so we waited, and then just the beginning of last weekend, at the end of last weekend, they came and began working on things, and they found that our house had like wax bleeding issues. I don't know if you guys are aware of this or anything like that. I guess it's something in the Treasure Valley because of the the panels they put up, there's this wax bleeding issue. And they warned me when they gave me the estimate that this might be something, but don't worry about it. We have this primer that's going to work over it, and that's great. So they came to my house, and they started doing their stuff, prepping, caulking, and all that stuff. And they get to the place of actually starting to put on the paint and prime it and all that stuff. And so they put the paint on just to test a couple areas. And what they notice is it's flaking off and peeling off right away. And so then they tested a couple other areas, and the same thing was happening. And then they tried a primer, and then they painted over the primer, and the same thing was starting to peel off. And so the guys came to me, and they said, hey, so here's the issue. We have this primer, we have this paint, we're going to do it, but if we do it over this primer, this specific primer, then your warranty is void. We can't guarantee it. The paint company won't do it. And inside me, I'm going, what? Like, what? No. You told me that this is something that you were going to do. This is, you need to show up. You gave me a quote. I've been waiting for 6 months, basically, at this point, for you to come and paint my house, and now you're telling me that you're not going to stand by your word. And inside, I'm like, ah! Have you ever been there before? You're like, dang, I'm so pissed right now. But you know that outside, and I'm not kidding, when I had a conversation with the dude, I had my Stonehill church shirt on. Right? So it's like Stonehill Church. It was like pastor on my forehead, okay? I'm thinking, and so inside I'm like, raging like the Hulk, and outside I'm like, well, that's a bummer. All right. Well, I really don't agree with you or with how you guys are doing things, and I was super calm. I was firm, but I was calm, and I was respectful, and we got done with it, and it was a great conversation. I said, hey, I appreciate how you guys are handling this. Because he went out and said, hey, we're going to try to get a warranty offside of this and all that junk. And I'm like, thank you. And I hung up the phone, and I went to Danae, and I go, I'm so proud of myself. Because I'll be honest with you, there's times in the past where I would have just raged on that guy. I would have been like, are you kidding me? I don't care if I'm a pastor or not. You need to stick. And I didn't do that. I said, hey, you know what? Let's figure this out. And they're a great company, and so that's what I mean. Just the everyday situations, the everyday scenarios of life. Again, it's a bit what Leif talked about today, that we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we're declaring to the people around us? What are we representing to the people around us when it comes to this faith that we have? What are we saying to our coworkers? What are we saying to our family members? And by the way, we often tend to be the most rude to our family members. What are we declaring? So we have to do that reflective work. And we have to be honest with ourselves. If we're really living the way that Christ asks us to live, not just in the venues that make sense. Well, yeah, of course we're going to behave ourselves at church. Well, yeah, of course we're going to behave ourselves when we're maybe talking with the boss, but the way I treat the employees or the way I treat my peers, what are we declaring? And Leif said it great. It's one of my favorite sections of Scripture. It says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. This is your true and proper worship. This is what it looks like to build character. This is what it looks like to build trust. It's understanding that our life is not our own, that in every venue, every season, every area of life, we have an opportunity to worship God. And that's what Jesus is getting to in this section of Scripture. He's trying to move it from the head to the heart and saying, hey, you don't need to fluff all this stuff up with all the promises, all the vows, all the oath. Just let your yes be your yes, and let your no be your no. And that's something we need to understand too, is that it's okay to say no. It's actually okay to say no. And some of us, we need to say no. Some of us need to look at our plate, the plate of life, and go, I'm going to be honest with you, my plate is pretty full right now, so what do I need to move off my plate so I could do what I really want to do on my plate, so I can have really what I really want to have sitting on my plate? There's a great parable in Matthew chapter 21 where a father, he's talking to two sons, and Jesus is kind of giving this parable, and he's saying that there's this dad, he has two sons, and he goes to the first son, he says, hey son, I need you to go and work in the vineyard. And the first son says, nah, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. No, I'm not going to do it. But then he shows up later, and he goes and he works the vineyard. And then he goes to the second son. He says, hey, son, I need you to go and work in the vineyard. And the second son goes, yeah, Dad, I'd love to do that. But he never shows up and goes to the vineyard. And Jesus asked, well, which son did what the father asked? And the guy said, well, the first son. See, I'd rather us say, you know what, I'm not sure I can do that, and then be able to show up than say, yeah, I can do that, I'll do that, I'd be happy to do that, and then not show up. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying say no to everything and then just surprise people, all right? That's not what I'm saying, all right? So don't be like, hey, the pastor told me I could do this, it's great. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no, and understand that when you say yes to something and then don't show up, your character just took a hit. Right there. Boom. Now, I'll help you move. Cricket, cricket, right? We don't show up. Yeah, I'll go to your recital. I'll pray for you. I'll do that. I'll do this. And then we don't show up. It knocks our character. We can say no, and some of us need to learn how to say no, because busyness is not a badge of honor. Busyness is not something that you and I should flaunt, like, oh, look at how busy I am, because I'm important. Remember how I said one of our core sins is this need to prove ourselves? This has to do with it too. That we pride ourselves. Hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh my gosh, I have so much to do. I got to fix my yard. I got to go to my kids' stuff. I got to do this. And we make this long list of things that are to-dos, and we feel better about ourselves and saying, you know what? This weekend, I'm just going to enjoy family. This weekend, I get to go and just rest. This weekend, I get to go and, because some of us wear busyness like a badge of honor. I know that was my story for a long time. I prided myself off of saying, yeah, I'm super busy today, because I didn't want to admit that if I said, you know, I don't have a lot to do, that people would look at me and go, well, you're lazy. Well, that must be nice. Have you ever thought about that statement, by the way? That must be nice. That's like one of the most judgmental statements ever. Well, that must be nice. You and I, we can say no. And when we say no to the right things that we need to say no to, that means we can say yes to the right things that we need to say yes to. That's what that does. And then that's when we get to build trust even more. But building trust is more like a dial, not a switch. Again, this is going to take some time. And so if you have broken trust, if you're sitting there and you're going, how can I restore my marriage? Because there's broken trust in my marriage. It's a dial. It takes time. It's not a light switch. It doesn't just go pop, fixed. So be encouraged in this, that when you and I strive to build trust, when you and I live, not just in the head, but in the heart as well, and combining these two things the way Jesus is showing us. And then later in the next few weeks when we talk about habits, so we learn to hear, that is what it looks like to build character. So I want to ask this question, then we'll be done. What's the best yes? What is the best yes? What's the best thing that we can say yes to? What do you need to move off your plate so you can say yes to what God really has in store for you? I've had conversations with some of you that say, I really have this heart to work in kids ministry. I just don't know how to do it. I don't know how to find the time to really be able to serve the way I'd want to serve. I really, really want to go. I've heard this many times. I've made probably about 40 phone calls this last week to get people to go on the mission trip, because I'm going to be honest with you, we need more people. I have 8, but I want to have at least 12 to 15. I believe God's going to do that, 12 to 15. But I made lots of phone calls, and I heard many, many times, you know what? I have so much to do, I can't go. I can't go. And they go, I really want to go. I've had a heart. I feel like God's calling me to do this. I really want to do it. I can't go. I have so much to do. And inside I'm going, what do you need to say no to so you can say yes to this? What's going on inside that you're so busy that you can't do the things that God is really perhaps calling you to do? What do you need to say yes to? What do you need to say no to? Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? Father, thank you that this morning, it's just a practical message. And it seems easy in concept that, oh yeah, we could just say yes, yeah, we could just say no. But so much more difficult to apply. It's so much harder to to look at our busyness, to look at the things going on in our lives, and not to try to puff ourselves up with I swears or the oaths or the promises, but really believing, Lord, that the goodness that you're calling us to, the great things that you have in store for us are great things. So teach us, Lord, teach us what it means to trust you. Teach us what it means to build trust in the relationships we have with other people. Teach us what it means to just let our yes be our yes and our no be our no. So thank you, God, for, again, just a practical message in Jesus' name. Amen.